Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We've got Ryan Grimm on. He has some exclusive and explosive audio of homophobic slurs at a Democratic Party committee. This is sort of the follow-up to the whole Alex Moore situation that we brought you here back during that primary, so you definitely don't want to miss that one. We also have a first-timer on the show from the Humanist Report, Michael Figueredo. He's going to talk about the situation in the Senate and the filibuster and what Democrats should be doing there. And that is actually where we want to start this morning. Some big developments yesterday in terms of the Senate's operations.
Yeah, that's right. So Senator Mitch McConnell late last night put this out there. He relents on the Senate filibuster stalemate. So this is important because, as we've been talking about, because the Senate is officially split 50-50, they need to organize themselves with an organizing resolution, a power sharing agreement, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
What would it really mean is that you get half of the senators would be Democrat, half will be Republican on the committees, a tie vote. All of that would allow legislation to advance to the floor, basically because the Senate is the one who governs how it itself functions. Now, McConnell had been actually filibustering that organizing resolution because he wanted a guarantee from Democrats that they would not nuke the filibuster. It's kind of like a circular logic type thing, which is kind of fascinating. Now, this, of course, is, we've talked about it here. You could only leave it to Washington and to mostly these Democrats to be like, yeah, let's let the entire first week of the Biden administration basically go to waste because they're allowing a lot of this stuff to happen. But McConnell says that it was enough that two Democratic senators came out and said they would not nuke the filibuster. And we got that yesterday. So let's throw the first one up there on the screen. Joe Manchin was emphatic he will not vote to kill the filibuster. In fact, Krystal, in an interview with the Washington Post yesterday, he even said that he would not even vote to nuke the filibuster on organizing resolutions, saying they got to figure it out. And then the second person was Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona. I've talked about her here before. She put out this statement: "This will not get my vote. In fact, whether I'm the majority or the minority, I would always vote to reinstate the protections for the minority. It is the right thing for the country." McConnell says that those two things were enough for him. So now Washington can get back to not working. I actually predict very little change as a result.
Yes, yeah. Very well put. Look, here's the deal with Manchin and Sinema. And by the way, reportedly, there are a few others in the Senate Democratic caucus.
Feinstein.
Who probably wouldn't go along with this either. So Democrats are a significant ways away from actually having the numbers to nuke the filibuster. But the deal with Manchin and Sinema is, first of all, they feel like they're in red states, and they feel like, oh, this makes them look super bipartisan, and like they're making sure that they're power sharing with the Republicans and all of this. But it has the convenient side benefit of, if everything has to get 60 votes, then they are rarely put on the spot and having to actually take hard votes and record and register where they stand on any of this. So all of this is just a great act of cowardice. Like, they're not standing up for any principle other than protecting their own butts so that they don't have to take any difficult positions that may put them at odds with some of the voters in their own states. So that's the real deal with what is ultimately going on here. Now, look, I think you and I have different views on the filibuster. I do think we should get rid of it. I think if you're the majority, you should be able to pass your agenda. And if people don't like it, then, somebody else can take power and they can try their agenda. We have so much gridlock. And also the Senate is an undemocratic body in the way that the representation works to start with. However, I will say, very hard for me to get super worked up about the filibuster when it doesn't seem to me like Democrats are even planning to max out the majority tools that they have at their disposal, namely budget reconciliation. There's a lot Bernie Sanders will tell you that you can do through budget reconciliation, and they don't even seem like really planning to or focused on maxing out what they can already do with those tools. So if they got rid of the filibuster, would it really dramatically change what they would accomplish through this body when you still would have to get Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema on board with all this stuff? No, probably it wouldn't really significantly shift things. So even though I definitely support nuking the filibuster, I know you have different views on that, I don't actually think that that is the real stumbling block to Democrats accomplishing the things that they want to accomplish. I think the stumbling block is corporate influence. I think the stumbling block is their own ideology. I think the stumbling block is, Joe Biden, who has 4 decades of working in a particular way towards the center with corporate interests and all of that. I think those are really the bigger issues than the filibuster at this point.
No, you're absolutely right. So regardless of how you actually feel, as you said, what is the one thing that all Democrats actually agree on? I couldn't actually really give you anything. I mean, I couldn't even tell you, look, I think on the cultural front, like some stuff would change, abortion, et cetera, maybe guns. Actually, even then with Manchin and Sinema, I don't think so. So realistically, what would really change? Maybe immigration, different types of agreements that you could all come to. And same thing on the right. I mean, look, the right has been gaslighting its base to think that let's say if they nuked the filibuster and they have united control of government, what are they going to do? They're like, well, we're going to Roe versus Wade, all that. What do they actually do? They cut a bunch of taxes. That's it. That's all they really agree on. Yeah. So that's what you're getting to, which is that the real bipartisanship and the only shared thing within these parties is really just like cutting taxes, budget hawkery for no other reason than, whatever, and then funding the defense industry. That's basically it whenever it comes to actual policy. And we saw this from the president yesterday, Joe Biden, when I'm going to be talking a lot about this in my radar, is about how these neoliberals from both sides of the aisle are gaslighting all of Washington into thinking that they're actually negotiating when they're just moving the price of stimulus down and down and down. And here's the thing. No matter how much you negotiate, for the extremists on both sides who they claim to represent, it will not be enough. And so it will still be a fool's errand. But Biden is like, yeah, I'm willing to negotiate. Here's what he said yesterday.
I proposed that because it was bipartisan, I thought it would increase the prospects of passage, the additional $1,400 in direct cash payment to folks. Well, there's legitimate reason for people to say, do you have the lines drawn the exact right way? Should it go to anybody making over X number of dollars or why? I'm open to negotiate those things.
Krystal, you played audio here. $2,000 for every man, woman, and child. What
immediately?
Happened? That's what it means. Immediately. It's day, 6 of the presidency now? I mean, nothing is going on. And if you think that a lack of filibuster or organizing thing is going to bring this, you're a fool. That's, again, what I'll be talking about. In terms of the timeline, they can't commit to anything here. It's insane.
It's the most Democratic Party thing ever. Like, no one has even really pushed you on this. And you're already like, oh, of course, we'll bend. We'll do whatever you want. Let's just keep in mind, $2,000 checks, not $1,400 checks, $2,000 checks have 80% support in the country. What the hell are you afraid of? It's insane. You made one really clear promise. $2,000 checks. Immediately, not, well, maybe it's $1,400, maybe we'll get to in March or possibly April. Maybe we'll even negotiate more and means test it down so that even fewer Americans ultimately benefit from this. No. And how come? Where's the negotiation on the other side? Because you have a lot of progressives who would like to see $2,000 a month go out every month for the duration of the pandemic at least. But I don't see his willingness to negotiate on that side of the ledger. It's just instantly caving in an insane way on an issue that is so popular. Like, it is such a no-brainer to me to put Republicans and, yes, even conservative Democrats on the spot by bringing $2,000 checks, a clean bill for $2,000 checks to the floor of the Senate, like today, immediately. And if they go back, because you have a lot of Republican senators on the record supporting them, if they go back on their word, put them in a tough spot.
At least 6, and then run. Let's say Marco Rubio didn't actually show up. Run those ads against him. Whenever he's up in the 100%. U.S. Senate, he would lose. It's Florida. It's still on the margins-ish. Same thing down in Georgia. You want Raphael Warnock to stay in the U.S. Senate? You better pass those damn checks.
Look at what happened with Joe Manchin.
Yes.
Because I think it's so instructive, right? He came out and was like, absolutely not on $2,000 checks. He immediately had to walk it back, had ads run against him at home, and changed his position because this issue is so popular. You have them right where you want them. And why wouldn't you want to be seen as the guy who was really out there fighting for $2,000, not going, well, we can negotiate it down and we'll get to it later and I'm going to hear these concerns and let's means test it down, et cetera. But so that, if you want to know where the real stumbling block in the United States Senate is, It isn't right now the filibuster. If you had a party that was actually committed to really delivering and fighting for big change, it could be the filibuster. But the real stumbling block right now is Democratic establishment leadership, and in particular, President Joe Biden.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, look, Chuck Schumer is out there, now making big promises, and we'll see. I mean, here's what he had to say on Maddow yesterday.
Our North Star has to be the legislation itself. It has to be big and bold and strong. If Republicans work with us to get good, strong legislation, yes. But I agree with you. I've made these arguments in numerous places. Look at 2008, where we spent a year and a half trying to get something good done, ACA, Obamacare, and we didn't do all the other things that had to be done. We will not repeat that mistake. We will not repeat that mistake.
And, Rachel really asked him actually a very good question there. She said, look, we saw the way that this went on Obamacare.
Yes.
Where you didn't even put a public option on the table, let alone a single payer option. You negotiated down to try to get Republicans on board, and they don't vote. In the end, even though you give up all this stuff to try to get Republicans on board, they don't end up voting for it. Same thing on stimulus, right? You negotiate it down, make it way too small, make too much of it, tax cuts rather than direct aid, direct spending to try to get Republicans on board, and in the end, they don't even vote for it. So when are you going to learn your lesson that it's not worth negotiating with these people because they're not acting in good faith? You're just going to weaken your position with massive, by the way, if all you care about is the political consequences, massive political consequences to bear. We all remember 2010, the Republican Tea Party wave because Democrats failed to really deliver on a lot of their promises and do enough to make people feel like they were really on the road to recovery. Massive political consequences. Schumer says the right things there. He says that he gets that he's learned the lesson, that ultimately they've got to be guided by the legislation, not how many moderate Republicans they can pander to and try to beg and plead to come on board. We shall see.
Yeah, that's right.
We shall see.
We'll see. I'm not going to hold my breath.
All right, we're going to tell you what's on our radars. That's next.